Well, good afternoon again. It's the two old farts making some noise again. We've got a special guest from South Africa, Devon de Swardt. My apologies if I got that name wrong. He's probably going to correct it. We're going fully international again. We're back in South Africa. We seem to have a lot of people in South Africa, which are fascinating to speak to and hear their stories. And we know a little bit about Devon. We know that he's a session musician. I have no idea what that means. That he has to go to sessions himself. He has to go to see a psychiatrist for sessions. I'm not sure how it all works.
He has to show the doll where he was to go touch me on the doll thing. That's what the sessions are about. Yes.
Stephen, without you, we would be lost, would we not?
There you go.
But anyway, and enough of this this stupidity. Over to you, Devon. Tell us about first of all, how did you become a session musician? And if anybody else wants to be a session musician, what sort of things you got to do? We got to go to session musician school, etc., etc. How does that all happen?
All right. Well, I became a session musician, I guess, kind of by default. I studied music formally. I studied at the University of Cape Town. And, it's the work that just made itself available. I also teach a lot. I mostly session and teach. I've tried to start up a couple of bands along the way. Cape Town's market is fairly small, so trying to get an original thing off the ground is quite tough here, unless you're in the pop world. So, the way players make money is playing for the pop guys, and the local artists. So I did a lot of that basically. Whatever artist is coming to the area and needs a guitarist, whether it be for live or whether it be for studio sessions or TV stuff, they just hire you on a per show basis or per session or per recording basis. And with any freelance stuff, you start off doing a lot of stuff free. And then, if you're reliable and you do the work well, your name gets around and then people start calling you. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Is your phone ringing at the moment, or are these hard times after COVID?
Yeah, it's been a bit slow. I'm doing a lot more teaching nowadays than playing. COVID knocked everything pretty hard here. I was in a band for a while, an original band that I was sort of producing, and I was acting as the guitarist. A local artist called Clare. Clare band was the group, and we were doing quite well. We actually did a couple of European tours. We did a bunch of national tours. We've been on radio all over the place and TV a bunch of times, and it was actually going really well. But then COVID totally messed it up, and we all had to take jobs, and so now the band is no more, unfortunately. But but it was fun. It was fun. Hoping to get the playing back up again for the end of season this year. So basically, starting from October, November of this year, we're hoping to get some playing done again.
Yeah, cool. Hopefully, people watching this will want the Clare band to come back.
Maybe. So we had a little bit of a European following.
That's cool.
Maybe.
Well, it's important that you give us all those links, and people will be able to find them down here. All the links will be down here, guys. So, including the links.
How about if we did this? If we said they're going to be up here, do you think people would still be smart enough to look down below? Probably not.
No,
anyway, only below. Only below.
Yeah. So. Only the religious ones among us. But we can do it this way as well, Stephen.
Okay. I don't know how to do that. I can only do this. So.
Okay.
So, Devon, you went to University of Cape Town and you studied what exactly? Did you study music? Did you study?
Well, technically, if you want the full title, I studied Western classical performance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so basically classical guitar. But, being a university thing, there was a lot of theory and history and stuff like that. A pretty important thing with session is you have to be versatile. If you limit yourself to one genre or whatever, then you limit how much work you can do, and you limit how many people you can work with. Right. So I'm classically trained, but I don't really consider myself a classical guitarist. I can do pretty much anything, gospel, soul, jazz, rock, pop, funk.
David's
country,
favorite
whatever.
music, jazz. Next time we interview you, you should just do jazz for an hour because David loves jazz.
Oh yeah,
The jazz pretty big.
yeah.
Now,
It's,
so have you played for somebody that people would know? Or would you like? I know as like a studio, like you said, you do live, like for a gig if a band comes to town or whatnot. Would there be? I'm being somewhat tongue in cheek here, like the Rolling Stones or someone like that came into Cape Town that said we need a guitarist or we need this in a studio. Is there anybody famous that people would recognize that you guys have done work with?
Not international famous, but I've played with a lot of the local famous people.
Okay.
I don't know if I should name there. Does anyone know them?
Well, we know Captain Jax. We know him. So by name. He's the only one I know. That's because of Matthew.
Yeah. I've played with Matthew Mole, with Majosi, with Arnold Carsten, with the Rudimentals, with Zolani, Groove, Gian Groen. Sure, go quite a lot. They're all
Those are
guys.
all easy names for Americans to pronounce. So thank you. That's awesome. So
Yeah, sorry.
That's quite okay. We're an international show, and as we tell our people that we're going to take you from where you are to mediocrity, and with our 17 fans globally. So we're very excited about that. So not to worry.
I've done quite a lot of playing with Cape Town Gospel Choir.
Okay.
And through them, we've played with like a lot of orchestras and a lot of the better known people in the classical world and the gospel world.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's been quite fun. It's quite fun being in a rock band playing with a 70-piece orchestra. In these big halls and stuff. It's a good experience.
Very nice.
so what makes more noise, the orchestra or the rock band?
Well, that depends on the sound man. In theory, the orchestra, but obviously we've got amplifiers and PA systems and things like that. So it depends on the sound man.
So what happens then? You get this telephone call and you just truck up. Do you know what's expected of it when you get there? Or do you just know, oh, this is the genre for today, and then you say, right, play that?
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. Some people will have like written out parts and then they'll send you the sheet music and you come prepped. Other people will just sort of send you the album that they recorded and then they expect you to kind of copy the album. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 rehearsals, sometimes it's literally walk on stage, sometimes there's 7 or 8 rehearsals. It depends what you're doing. Like for the orchestral stuff, there's generally 7 or 8 rehearsals because the parts are usually fairly complex and spread out all over the place. With studio stuff, often people won't really have an idea of what they want. They just kind of want guitar. So they book you for the day or the full afternoon or whatever, and then they play you the track, and then you got to like write your own part for it. And then you work with the producer to find the tone that you want and fill up some space. So it's quite organic. I quite like the studio stuff. It tends to be quite creative.
Is it purely, are you doing classical and electric guitar?
I actually don't really play classical that much anymore. The classical quite small.
So the education was worth it then?
Well, it was actually. Classical kind of sets a standard, and it's like meet the standard or go away. So it forces you to put in the hours. It forces you to, put in the work. And that genre does tend to be quite difficult. So if you can play the classical stuff, something like rock is less of a challenge. So I'm quite glad I did the classical thing. It gave me a pretty good grounding. It fixed a lot of my technical issues and, taught me how to read music and things like that.
Cool.
And what gives you the biggest buzz in Devon? When you literally say, right, we're now performing, you just wander on and play, or if you have those 1 or 2 practice sessions before. Because it must be quite, both are quite daunting, of course, because these are all people you've never met before probably, and now you have an audience in front of you and you have to do your thing.
Yeah. Look, I've been doing this long enough where, I can pretty much go with whatever. The first couple times I had to walk on stage, never having heard the song I'm about to play was pretty stressful. But, musicians in general are, pretty open people. They don't mind shouting key balls at you on the stage. And, you learn how to read the cues, you learn how to follow the band leader. It's all just skills you pick up along the way, and then everything just sort of flows. When everyone on stage and everyone's there with the right attitude, and no one's trying to outshine anyone or be difficult, all flows pretty naturally. When you're working with professionals, which is pretty cool.
When you were growing up, did you always want to be a musician, or did something happen at some point where you were like, I want to be a musician and I'm going to go to university to be a musician?
A bit of both. We have quite a lot of music in the family. The one international name drop I can do is my uncle did have a brief stint with the Beach Boys.
Okay.
Back in the whatever. His name was John Mair, no, not Mayor, Mair.
Okay.
He's sort of a local legend. So I always looked up to him. I always thought what he did was cool. But then the personal music, moments was when Nirvana Unplugged came out in the 90s.
Okay.
And when I watched, okay, I think I actually want to do this. And then I started playing, and my uncle did teach me a bit, and he got me gigging and stuff. Yeah.
Now, is your uncle still alive?
No, he passed away from a car accident about 20 years ago. No,
sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because all the noise in the background, of course, is all the Americans waking up to when they're watching this, because you mentioned something that they understood. A band, the Beach Boys. So that's that. Yeah.
Listen, I understood a few other things, like the Clare Francis band. Now I'm going to go later Google them and see who the Clare Francis band is, because now I'm just totally fascinated with that.
Yeah. But it's always refreshing to know as much as we do about our people we interview, Stephen.
Yes.
I think it's keep the tradition moving. So, friendly musicians, people who say, "Come on, let's just do this number." Yeah. Is that sporadical? I mean, you say you teach as well. I mean, does the teaching pay the rent, or does the music pay the rent and the teaching subsidize your living, or vice versa?
It tends to fluctuate a bit. So especially with the live stuff, certain times of year are busier than others. And the schools close for holidays and things like that, so then you don't earn those months or whatever. So it sort of balances out. Depends what time of year. Around Christmas and around summer, the gigs tend to be more. But then there's very little happening in winter. Then the teaching kind of carries things. Yeah.
So at some point, if you'd like to come back, we'd love to hear you play. And so if we said play, what's your play of choice? Like if you have your druthers, what genre would you play?
I do lean towards the rock stuff.
Okay.
Quite like the blues, especially like the blues-based rock stuff, which is really cool.
Okay.
I play a lot of the crazy prog instrumental nonsense that nobody understands.
Nice.
So these are the 17-minute guitar solos.
Yeah.
That's perfect, because
just...
then David can do whatever he needs to do during those 17 minutes, and it's just all you. We like that. So
yeah. Well, normally the nurse comes about this time, Stephen, as you know. So I have to.
Right. So when the nurse comes, what we could do is, then if we get a chance to have you play, you can do a 17-minute gig. His nurse takes care of him. When it's done, he comes back. It'll look like he was here the whole time. It'll be great. So
nice.
The medicines are still working, I'm pleased to say.
There you go. So go ahead, David.
I was just worried. You talk about Christmas, but Christmas is not is sort of in the middle of the warm season in South Africa, is it not?
Yeah, here it is.
So you say that. So these are all what would be in the northern hemisphere would be all the summer festivals and gigs that are happening. and then in the when in the middle of what we would have as summer, things are all closed down on your side.
Yeah, pretty much. Things start getting busy here around September. That's when the festivals and things come. Then December we have all of our year-end functions and things like that. So there's money to be made there. And then February, January, there's a lot of weddings, a lot of private functions, a lot more festivals. The festivals sort of go on till about March, April. And then things start to wind down for winter.
Yeah, which is strange that because it certainly, I mean, I'm living here in Holland, but for me, you see that in the summer is loads of festivals, and then it goes dead a little bit at the September, October time, and then everything picks up again for our Christmas. So Christmas gigs, a lot of people do Christmas tours. You're talking about doing the gospel stuff. I mean, there's must be loads of work all happening there, but is that the same thing happening in South Africa then? That they do lots of Christmas gigs and as well as the summer festivals. So it's like double bubble.
Yeah. It all kind of happens at the same time here because our summer basically starts in December. So right when things are getting hot, we have the holiday season, and then New Year's and things like that. So it all kind of happens at the same time. And then our May, June, July is usually like dead, like nothing happens.
So we're getting him right before the busy season is what he's saying. So what he's saying politely is, no, I'm not really going to come back and play for you, but I'm glad you asked because the busy season is happening an hour after this call. So, we got it. So.
So what have you got? Anything booked in your diary for the coming weeks?
Mostly just rehearsals now. This is kind of the heavy rehearsal season. I've got a cover band thing going. I'm going to try and hit the year-end functions. We've got some corporate connections and things. So, a lot of the bigger companies will hire a band or 5 for their various functions. And there's pretty good money to be made there. So we're trying to get ready for that. So we're hitting the rehearsals pretty hard. There's about 4 hours of music we need to try and get tight. with 6 people, it can be a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what we're hitting the rehearsals hard right now.
And these are all different genres then. So you have, this is like when you go to a corporate will say, can you come and play at my end of year function? They say, well, can you play this, and this, or do you present a portfolio of music that you're going to cover?
It's a bit of both. We do have our standard portfolio, and we try to keep it pretty varied. A bunch of hits from each decade. So everything back from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, and modern stuff. And then now and then you do get someone who wants something specific. And then they say, I want 3 hours of, big band jazz, or I want 3 hours of 80s rock or whatever. Then generally we prep specifically for that gig, and that usually winds up being more expensive to the clients because then we have to put specific time into, one show. But I mean, people do that. There are a lot of like themed parties, themed weddings and things like that here. So yeah, that kind of thing happens too.
Yeah. What we see here, we've been to quite a few, and here locally, is these sort of, I shan't say revival bands, but people who just say hits of the 60s. So they do a whole tour, all these different theatres. And then they'll come back the next year and do hits of the 70s, which will be the same band. They come back around to do and do all the 70s, but they just do the theatre circuit. That was something you hadn't spoken about. You were saying, like festivals and corporate things, but theatres. Would you do a series of theatres?
Yeah, that's kind of, a lot of musicals happen here. And there are a lot of those themed touring bands around, like they put together a set of Bee Gees and Queen, and then they go and tour around doing that. I did do some of that work before, but I actually have 3 kids now, so I try to avoid the touring stuff now, unless the money's really good. and that kind of thing is pretty labor intensive. You're sort of on the road for several weeks at a time, and playing all day and driving all day. But sorry, playing all night and driving all day. It's that's a young man's game. I don't really do.
So he's saying, David, we couldn't do that. He's saying it's a young man's game. He's just trying to say the two old guys, we can't do that. So, they have to push us in our wheelchairs.
I think he's referring to the fact that we're two old farts, actually. Yeah, Stephen.
I see that. I see that now.
That just wouldn't be possible for us. We could do a Zimmer frame tour, maybe.
Sorry?
Or just go with our Zimmer frames and do a complete tour.
He doesn't know what a Zimmer frame is.
Oh, he doesn't. Oh. Well, you can Google that, but you'll have one.
Yeah, right. No, I mean the your age, you still do that circus, and they love it. The career touring musicians love that kind of thing. It's just not really for me. I like to be home with the kids as much as I can be.
So, what's the next thing that you wanted? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No. You said that's why. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's fine. It's just, I just want to be home. But that's why I teach more now.
Gotcha. So what's the next thing though? Then would be on your radar if you have, have your band and just kind of be locally known, or do you want to be South African known or internationally known, but be able to stay home and, if you will, basically do it all in the studio and do a live performance in Cape Town twice a year, and then just be like, okay, we're good. So what's the plan? What do you want to do? As my father would say to me when I was getting my degrees, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I don't want to grow up, but if I have to do something, this is what I want to do.
Okay, no, fair enough. For the cover band, I mean, probably just local. Every now and then a cover band will get flown up to Johannesburg or one of the bigger cities, to do a specific gig or whatever. Okay. Probably just local. I am in the middle of putting together a teaching platform, like an online thing.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that will become my time. Sort of like Udemy-based courses,
right?
But more on the platform, not necessarily. So I'm busy scripting and filming for that.
Okay.
That would be the next big step for me, and then I'll promo with video stuff. Like I'll do some covers of some difficult music and market that on Instagram or whatever, just to get clients. But yeah, I'm hoping to take the online teaching thing international.
Cool. If when you do that, come back and we'll do an interview and we can actually just promote the platform. Because
awesome.
that would be awesome, because to me that's interesting, because in my real job we do stuff globally, but I know until China just had their crackdown that there's one guy who does international teaching there, and he had 30 million students. So it's a huge market, and especially I think if you're doing music and whatnot. So
yeah, definitely. I'd love to come back on. Thanks. I'm looking to get that up and running early next year.
Very cool. Well, between now and then, come and play for the audience. Yep. And then this way, when you come up with the platform, it'll be like they'll seen this interview, we hope. They'll see that you've played, and then they'll see your talent, which hopefully will get you some gigs as well. And then when you promote your platform, people are gonna be like, okay, this guy can play. Now they know who you are. So you kind of, you can kind of market yourself a little bit at a time, and you can go, hey, look, I'm on this. You go to YouTube. You can go see me there. There you go. Yeah. So it can help you out.
Thank you very much. I'm keen.
No worries. Yeah.
Maybe I can sing a singer from my band to come join me, and we'll do some songs together.
That would be awesome. We have one of our guys. He and his band are going to do a practice. I like what you guys are basically doing. And he says, we'll during the practice, you can interview us and we'll play, a couple songs. I'm like, perfect. So the whole thing of this channel, other than, you get us out of the nursing home for an hour a day, is for us to promote artists. So whether you're a musician, an artist, a football, whatever, it's all an art, right? So whatever talent you want to showcase, we want you to showcase it. So this is a good intro, because everyone now understands what you do and how you do it. So the next time, whether it's you or the band, so, It's my friend. It's
Yeah.
a party. And then when you do your platform, of course, bring your platform here. We would love to like showcase that. That'd be awesome. But that's what the whole channel is about, is just to showcase people that otherwise aren't going to get showcased today. 3 or 4 years from now, when you're rich and famous, you'll forget us, but we'll be like, we had you on our show. So there you go. Then you'll be on all these really big shows, and you'll be like, they'll pull this out, and you'll be like, I was so embarrassed when I did this. But
it's cool. I'm sure I'll promo you guys. Oh, I see.
So.
It's massive.
So, Devon, what about Hobson's Choice then? What about having that monster hit and then saying it's now time to go, Dad, on this international tour? What happens then?
I put those dreams aside a while ago. Yeah.
Is it but the pull of money, the pull of fame?
Yeah. Look, obviously that was the intention. That's why I studied music performance instead of something academic, or engineering or whatever. But you realize pretty quickly the cost of that. What it actually takes to live that lifestyle. And kudos to those who can do it. But I realized pretty to have a family life. I have to actually have a relationship with my parents and my kids, which is difficult if you're on the road all the time. And with international, that just gets more intense. You're away for longer stretches. So yeah, it's just not something that I'm really interested in anymore.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to hear you say that. I mean, as Stephen was talking about, one of the reasons why we did the platform is to get to do this, these little interviews with people, is to find out the stuff that other people don't sort of really know about or talk about. Is to say, if we have a band that's going to practice, they're going to make mistakes. Great, because all bands make mistakes. But how often does anybody get to see that? The reality of it. You're a classical trained musician. You still love your music. You still go out and do stuff. But hey, family's really important.
Yeah.
And that must be a dilemma that a lot of people have. Fame and fortune, and that nomadic life that can go with that, or just saying, you know what, I can get enough out of playing music in a smaller sphere, get some money out of that, and still enjoy my family.
Yeah, exactly. And I count myself, very blessed, because I get to have my instrument in my hand pretty much all day, every day. Whether it's teaching or performing or rehearsing or whatever. So, and not a lot of people have that. Not a lot of people have a hobby that they're passionate about that's actually able to pay the bills. So, I'm just grateful that I have that. And I get to interact with other people who enjoy it as well. So, the fame and fortune thing is great. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't turn it down if it was put in my lap, but it's just not that important anymore. And I just am so grateful that I get to have my instrument in my hand, most days of the week, and still get to support my family. So, thank you for that.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Because everybody wants to be, whether it's an actor, a musician, or an artist, but then they can't support their family. But you get to do actually your passion and support your family. Like we had Rob Vega on, I'll use his professional name, and he was like, he's a voiceover actor and whatnot. So he was sort of like, everybody, when he was growing up and started, it was sort of like, that's not a real job, until he showed them their pay stubs. He's like, no, it's a real job now. So it's like, okay, now you have a real job. So that's very cool that you get to do your passion.
Yeah, no, I count myself lucky.
Very cool.
Yeah, we have so many artists that we come across who their reward seems to be somewhere else other than just with money. And of course, all that money is important because it keeps the roof over your head, keeps the lights on. But trying to find that balance, and I don't know. Is it a blessing? Is it a curse to have to be internationally famous? I sometimes wonder, we sit and occasionally watch the odd documentary about a rock star and,
Yeah.
or a famous person, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Lots of heartache, lots of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's
with maturity, I'm pushing 40 now. So I'm not
40.
spring chicken
I
anymore.
have scotch older than you. So just
yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
I'm wearing jeans older than that, Stephen.
So-
Yeah. Well, so you on in life and how things actually work. What the cost of all of these things actually is. You have these people who are the CEOs of these big international companies, and they run all these TV channels, or they run these radio stations, or they have all these artists, these fans or whatever. But like, if you look at the work they're actually putting in, I don't really want to work 120-hour weeks every week, 52 weeks a year. I don't want to eat, sleep, and breathe an insurance job, even if it's paying me millions. It's just that kind of thing is less important to me. So I think it's silly to envy something if you're not willing to put the work into it. I'm going to do what they did to get there, and like, I accept that. I came to the conclusion that I don't want it that bad, and that's fine.
That's perfect. That's perfect for our show. So,
Yeah.
you know what our motto is: expectations are low. So there you go. So,
Nice.
we strive for mediocrity. Anything past that, it's like, whoa, calm down. Let's not get carried away here. Our expectations are really low. So
Yeah, but there you have it. There you have it again, Stephen. It's just there's just so much talent, so much richness out there. People have this strange view that the money will always make them happy. There's a very famous, I think, Spike Milligan quote that he said, money doesn't make you happy, but it makes being miserable a little bit easier. But, yeah, it can be a blessing and a curse. And it's interesting that you say that. I mean, that you carry your instrument wherever you go. As a musician, I have friends who are musicians. Is this a sacred object? Do you worship your guitar case? Which would be rather lose an arm than your guitar?
No.
Let's enter that question then.
Yeah. Obviously, emotional attachments to the thing that you spend so much time with, but at the end of the day, it is just a tool. It's a tool. So I've had to part with instruments that I cared about a lot for various reasons over the years. Sometimes they break, sometimes they get stolen, sometimes you have a few rough months and you have to sell stuff, and that's just life. But ultimately, it's just a tool. What the music is here. The music isn't in the instruments. So the instrument is just a channel for what's in here to come out. So it's the less important part of the equation.
Yeah. So not your fourth child then. That's what you're trying to say.
No. Again, maybe when I saw it that way, but once you have an actual child, and it's like, oh, this is what love is. This is what's important.
What is your current instrument? Tell us a little bit about that. What are you currently?
I'm jumping between two at the moment. I have a Fender Stratocaster. It's an American-made limited edition, sort of champagne color thing. It's been nicknamed Penny by the company. I'm quite enjoying that. And then I have an Ibanez RG Premium with a really fancy poplar paint job, poplar cover and a fancy paint job. It's really pretty. Those are my two main tools at the moment.
So interested, you say you're enjoying the Fender. Could you explain to us non-musicians what that actually means? Unless you're sleeping with it, of course, in which case you don't have to explain. But
it's a very versatile instrument. I get the vibe that it was made for session musicians. So there's lots of buttons to push and you can get a lot of color out of it. These things like Fenders and and Telecasters and things like that tend to have a specific tone, a specific usage. And while that usage is used in a lot of genres, they can pretty much only do that thing. What I'm enjoying about this Fender particularly is that it's got a very wide palette of colors. So I'm able to get a lot of different sounds out of it, which I'm enjoying immensely.
It's interesting in the mixed metaphor. You say sounds and colors, but is that how you experience it? So when you crank it up, you think, oh well, that sounds colorful, because it's almost an oxymoron, isn't it? Sounding colorful.
Yeah, it's just the jargon we use, really. Because how do you describe sound? You can describe it in frequency response, but I mean, no one will understand that. No one outside of a musician will understand that. But
could I say to you, does it have a blue sound or a yellow sound or a pink sound?
Yeah, there are people that think of it that way. Warm sounds can be equated to the warmer colors. Bright sounds can be quite cold. You can definitely equate it like that. Although I don't specifically. It's just the jargon that we all use.
Yeah. Well, of course, you're talking to non-musicians. Well, I'm a non-musician. I'm not sure about Stephen, but no.
The only instrument I play, no, I don't think they consider that a musician's instrument. So, but we're good. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm here till Thursday. Tip the wait staff anyway.
Yeah. But the only thing I know the tiny little bit about guitars, but I have, as I say, musician friends. Some of them play the Gibson and swear by it, and other people just want to have the Telecaster. So did you just swing one towards the other? Or was it a price thing, or you think, because they do sound different. I do appreciate slightly less metallic. I think the Gibson is what my friend calls it.
Yes, definitely that's all valid. There's a bit of a thing with people who do what I do and Gibson in the last 15 years or so, 10, 15 years, Gibson has started making instruments more for collectors than for musicians. The price tags are ridiculous, and they're beautiful instruments, very, very beautifully painted and beautifully finished, but they sound like crap, basically.
Unfortunately, we can't edit that out, and so that we were thinking that probably Gibson, the CEO, would be listening to this and would want to give you one to get you away from your Fender.
Get you away from your Fender. The Fender is what I understand is that's the guitar to have. That's what everybody I've ever known that's a musician, they always the goal is always to have a Fender, not a Gibson.
The big three are Fender, Gibson, and Ibanez. And I've always been more of an Ibanez guy, just because of the genres I prefer. But I have played a number of Fenders over the years. The Gibsons, if you can find the older Gibsons, those are absolutely exquisite. Like nothing beats a vintage Gibson. They're just magnificent. The modern stuff, like I said, I get the vibe is not really made for musicians. It's made for collectors.
Gotcha.
So they wind up being very beautiful, but not that playable.
Which doesn't do you any good, because looking at your guitar on the wall does not really help you play.
Yeah. And with the prices these days, I mean, I don't know what it is in pounds or whatever, but if you're spending 80,000 Rand on an instrument that sounds bad, you're going to be pretty upset.
Right. That's true. Yeah. You spend 80,000 on anything that sounds bad, it's bad. That's like, I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's it's 8,000 US or is it 800 US? It's a 10 to 1, isn't it?
That's 15 to 1.
Oh.
So I guess that would be about $2,500, $3,000. I'm not
sure. We'll call it 2,500. So about £1,000. That's still a lot of money to spend on an instrument if it sounds like crap. So
I'm gonna be upset.
Yeah.
And I agree.
But you need several options. You can't just have one instrument.
Right.
So if you've got 5 or 6 instruments all costing you that kind of money, you want them all to be useful.
Right. Not just hang on the wall and look pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I think that Yeah, fascinating to talk about the guitars. As I said, we can kiss goodbye to our guitar sponsor for today. Um, but
Well, it was nice
yeah,
having Gibson as a sponsor for all of 40 minutes. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah. But Devon, thank you very much for your time today, and to Stephen, of course, from. Are you still in sunny Austin, or are you back
I'm
home in
back.
Austin?
Yeah, no, we just got back to Austin from New York the other day, so that was exciting. So
Yeah,
now
yeah.
we're back. Don't worry, I won't go off on a New York tangent. If you've ever seen
Yeah.
any of the shows, I always do a New York tangent, but I won't because we're focusing on music, and
Yeah.
then I'd have to go off on a blues.
Yeah, well, I tried to see. I teed him up to talk about being in New York, and he didn't take the bait today. But that's just Stephen. He's love and passion of New York. I'll give him that. But our love and passion at the 12 Arts Making Noise is to talk to wonderful, new, exciting people that we haven't spoken to before. That's certainly you, Devon. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please come back with your band.
Well,
Yeah,
Please.
and come and play something, and that'll be be fascinating, and and an instrument of choice. So we'll leave it in the middle there. But
Thank you
gentlemen,
so much.
thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you.
yeah, thanks.